Hey boys and girls, welcome to another super exciting, outrageous toy review. Today, we're taking a look at the Slaughter's Marauders Sgt Slaughter. In 1989, Hasbro released a sub-team for the G.I. Joe collection called Slaughter's Marauders. This was a special team of figures led by Sgt Slaughter. All of these characters were repaints of older figures, giving Hasbro a chance to make some extra cash off of old molds, and giving kids a chance to collect figures they missed out on in the G.I. Joe collection. Since the theme for the final JoeCon is Slaughter's Marauders vs. Python Patrol, I decided to do a series of Slaughter's Marauders reviews in honor of the convention. We're going to start with Sgt Slaughter, because he's the reason the team's called Slaughter's Marauders. Sgt Slaughter was one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters. He was predominantly featured in the cartoon show in 1986 with a lot of my other favorite characters. I had the Triple T and the figure that came with it. I also had the Warthog and the figure that came with that. My sister had the mail-away Sgt Slaughter. She got him at a yard sale one time when we were buying G.I. Joe figures. My mom asked my sister if she wanted one. That's the one she picked out. So I passed on Slaughter Marauders Sgt Slaughter because I already had two and technically three in my house. So I did not have this guy originally. I picked this guy up at a toy show at some point. I do not have his baton, but basically he comes with a little brown stick with a gold tip. Looks kind of like a toothpick. As a kid, I didn't know that he came with one. I have no idea whether the one that came with my Triple T was lost instantly, or if when my parents took it out of the package, they lost it. I have no idea. I found out about that baton years later. But this figure is a repaint of the mail-away version. It uses the same upper half as the Triple T figure, but the bottom half has the wrestling tights as opposed to the more baggy camo pants. Slaughter Marauder figures are all dressed in a very similar paint scheme. They feature a bright blue, a dark green, a bright green, and brown, and then have a lot of black accents. This figure is not bad looking. I know a lot of people complain about the bright blue. Somehow, for me, it just kind of works. It's not the best color in the world, but it just makes him pop a little bit. One of my favorite things about this Sgt Slaughter is that his hat is molded in dark green plastic, but has a little tiny brown paint app there. It's too bad they couldn't accent his little symbol on his helmet, his chevrons. This figure kind of suffers from a few missed paint apps like that, as well as his wristbands not being painted. They did paint his glasses. They are bright blue. He's got his mustache there, his whistle, his blue tank top, black belt, his Slaughter Marauder camo pants, and he's got black wrestler boots. I don't know why I love Sgt Slaughter. Actually, I do know why I love Sgt Slaughter. He's larger than life. He had an amazing attitude. He was so important in the '87 movie, which was a huge part of my childhood. You have to remember that I loved G.I. Joe from the moment I saw it until decades after it was over. And for a long time, you couldn't see any G.I. Joe except for I had the movie on VHS, and I'd watch it all the time. And Sgt Slaughter is one of the best parts of that movie. I love every line he delivers in that movie, and that's a big part of why he's such an important character to me. And so I really like this figure. He's not my favorite of the Sgt Slaughters. In fact, he's probably my least favorite of the Sgt Slaughters released in the vintage line, but he's still a fun figure to have. Sgt Slaughter is one of the biggest and bulkiest G.I. Joe figures from the original run. He's got huge biceps, big pecs, big shoulders. He's a really tall figure. Sarge has articulation at the head. It is hindered somewhat by those ridiculously big shoulders. He's got an O-ring in the center there. He's got classic G.I. Joe shoulders, elbows, swivels at the elbows, hip joints, knee joints. And that's about it, but he is perfect. The G.I. Joe articulation, it really is, the classic G.I. Joe articulation, is all I could ever want in an action figure. Wrist swivels are nice and ankle rockers are nice, but this is just so good and so much fun. I loved the O-ring figures, and I miss them so much. I really wish that Hasbro would still make O-ring figures once in a while. I looked at Slaughter's Marauders Sgt Slaughter several times at the toy store. Could never bring myself to pick him out. He was just a repaint of a figure I already owned multiple versions of. He didn't really have any amazing accessories. It was just that stick, the baton, and that wasn't a reason for me to go out and get him. So he was one of the figures I avoided trying to get other characters from Slaughter's Marauders, and I didn't really have a lot of the Marauders as a kid. I had a few of them. I would have liked more of them, because I do like those figures. But they're actually, surprisingly, the character choices for this line were pretty much all figures I had the original releases of as a kid. Thanks for watching this super exciting, outrageous toy review. In the comments down below, let me know what you think of Sgt Slaughter. Make sure to like, subscribe, and check out our other videos. Hope to see you at JoeCon.